The morning began quiet, calm, and peaceful, exactly the kind of morning everyone wishes for on a Sunday. Birds were chirping softly, sunlight was slipping through the curtains, and a cool breeze moved across the neighborhood. Inside the house, the narrator, let's call him Sam for this story, yawned, stretched his arms, and walked into the kitchen. Sam loved slow mornings. He loved taking his time, making breakfast slowly, and playing soft music on his phone. Today he felt especially relaxed, so he decided to make something simple and tasty: crispy bacon, eggs, and toast. He opened the fridge, pulled out a packet of bacon, and started frying it in the pan. The smell filled the kitchen almost instantly. Warm, rich, comforting. Even Sam smiled and said to himself, perfect start to the day. He didn't know that this peaceful morning was going to turn into one of the strangest moments of his life. A moment he would never forget. A moment that would soon bring the entire neighborhood outside, and even the police. As the bacon sizzled, everything felt normal, until... bang! 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 A loud, angry knocking suddenly echoed through the house like someone was trying to break the door down. Sam froze. The pan kept sizzling, but Sam didn't move. He blinked once, confused. Nobody ever came this early. And nobody ever knocked like that. It wasn't just knocking, it was an attack. Then came a voice. A sharp, loud, furious voice, all too familiar. Open this door right now. I know you're cooking it. I can smell it from the street. Sam closed his eyes for a moment and sighed. Of course. Who else could it be? Karen. The HOA Karen. The woman who acted like she owned the entire neighborhood. The woman who believed she had full authority over everyone. The woman who once complained about kids laughing too loudly. The woman who said people's grass looked too green and needed to be less shiny. And yes, the same woman who sent a written warning because Sam's welcome mat was too friendly. And now she was screaming about bacon. Sam walked to the front door and opened it slowly. There she was. Karen stood on his porch like a storm in human form. Her hair was messy, her eyes were wide, and her face was red, so red that for a second Sam wondered if she was the one frying in a pan, not the bacon. She pointed a trembling finger at him. You stop cooking that bacon right now, she yelled, her voice echoing through the street. Sam blinked. Good morning to you too, Karen. Don't good morning me, she snapped. You are breaking the rules. Sam raised an eyebrow. What rules? Karen dramatically pulled out a thick folder of papers. She flipped through them frantically like she was searching for hidden treasure. This rule, she shouted, waving a random page in the air. HOA rule number, something. You cannot cook smelly food on a Sunday. Sam stared at her. That's not a rule. Yes it is, she screamed so loud that even the birds in the trees flew away. It must be a rule. The smell is spreading everywhere. It's air pollution. It's disturbing the peace. It's toxic. It's bacon, Sam said calmly. Karen gasped like she had been shot. How dare you say that so casually? You are poisoning the community. People are trying to live clean lives. And you are ruining everything with your greasy breakfast. Sam couldn't help it, he laughed a little. Not loudly, just a small laugh. But that tiny laugh hit Karen like a slap. Oh, you think this is funny, she said, her voice shaking with rage. A little, Sam admitted. Karen opened her mouth wide, then shut it, then opened it again like a fish choking on land. Finally she screamed. I am calling the police. Sam frowned. The police? For cooking breakfast? Yes, she shouted. I will report you for food assault. For public odor violation. For endangering the neighborhood with dangerous meat fumes. Sam blinked slowly. Dangerous meat, fumes? Yes, she yelled, stamping her foot so hard she almost lost her balance. You are breaking health codes. Community codes. HOA codes. Human codes. Sam wanted to laugh again, but he didn't want to risk her exploding even more. Karen, he said slowly, you can't call the police because someone is cooking bacon. Karen lifted her chin high. Watch me. Before Sam could say anything else, Karen spun around and marched down the street with her fists clenched, her shoulders tight, and her anger practically trailing behind her like smoke. But she wasn't done. Halfway down the driveway, she turned around and screamed. Don't you dare move. I am getting an officer, and you will be arrested. Sam looked down at his frying pan in confusion. Was the bacon under arrest? Was he supposed to handcuff his breakfast? He shook his head and muttered, she's lost her mind. But still, something about her voice made him pause. She wasn't joking. She wasn't bluffing. She was really going to call the police over bacon. And for a brief moment, Sam felt a strange chill run through him. What if the officer believed her? Karen was known for exaggerating. She was known for twisting stories. She had caused trouble before. And while Sam knew he had done nothing wrong, he also knew that dealing with Karen was like stepping into a tornado. He took a deep breath, went back to the kitchen, turned the stove off, and waited. The neighborhood was quiet again. But the peace didn't last long. Because 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up in front of his house. And Karen got out of her car right behind it, eyes wild, hair flying, folder of fake rules held high like she was ready for war. The real chaos was about to begin. The police car hadn't even fully stopped when Karen rushed toward it like a rocket. Her arms were waving, her folder was shaking in her hands, and she looked like she had been waiting her entire life for this exact moment. The officer stepped out, calm, professional, and clearly not ready for the storm that was about to hit him. Before he could say a single word, Karen screamed. Officer! Arrest him! Arrest him right now! The officer blinked slowly, as if his brain needed a second to catch up to her volume. Ma'am, arrest who? Him. Karen pointed dramatically at Sam's house like it was a crime scene. The bacon criminal. The public health threat. The officer glanced at Sam, who was standing on his porch looking confused but patient, as if he had been expecting this moment but still hoping it wouldn't happen. Okay, the officer said carefully, why don't you explain what happened? Karen opened her folder, holding the papers with shaking hands. She took a deep breath, preparing herself for the performance of a lifetime. This man, she began loudly, has committed a serious violation of community safety. He intentionally released harmful, greasy, toxic bacon fumes into the neighborhood. He has ignored HOA health guidelines. He has violated rule number. She flipped through her papers. Rule number, something. The officer raised an eyebrow. You don't know the rule number? Karen snapped, it's not about numbers, officer. It's about the danger. The smell. It almost knocked me unconscious. Sam folded his arms. You were never unconscious. Yes, I was. Karen insisted. In my heart. The officer rubbed his forehead. He had probably dealt with a lot of strange cases, but this one was clearly testing new limits. Ma'am, the officer said calmly, you're saying he should be arrested because he cooked bacon? Karen gasped as if the officer had just offended her entire family. Not just any bacon. The smelliest, greasiest, most evil bacon I have ever experienced in my life. It filled my yard. It entered my home without permission. I feel violated. Sam raised his hand slightly. It's just breakfast. Karen cut him off. No. You did this on purpose. You know I don't eat bacon. You know I only eat plant-based, smell-free food. And you still cooked it. That is harassment. The officer looked at Sam. Sir, did you cook bacon knowing she doesn't like it? Sam stared blankly. Officer, I didn't even know what she eats. I'm not spying on her through her windows. Karen shouted, you should. I put the information on the community bulletin board. Sam blinked. Karen, you taped your diet plan to the mailbox. No one asked for that. It's called transparency, she yelled. The officer took a slow breath, trying hard to stay calm. Ma'am, do you have any proof of this violation? Yes. Karen said proudly. She handed him one of the pages from her folder. The officer read it silently for a moment. Then he looked up. This page is blank. Karen snatched it back. Oh. Wrong page. She flipped through again and handed him another sheet. This one had a hand-drawn picture of a frying pan and a big X over it. Written in red marker were the words, "No cooking smelly things. HOA rule. Karen approved." The officer stared at it. Then he slowly lifted his eyes to Karen. Ma'am, this is not an official document. Yes it is. Karen shouted. I wrote it myself. That's not how HOA rules work, he said gently. Yes it is, she insisted. I am the HOA president. Sam cleared his throat. Karen, you appointed yourself. No one voted for you. Karen's mouth fell open dramatically. I do not need votes. I am a natural leader. People respect me. At that exact moment, one of the neighbors walked by with his dog. The dog saw Karen, whined, and hid behind its owner's legs. The owner whispered, "Sorry, officer," and quickly walked away. The officer tried not to smile. Ma'am, he said, I need real proof. Something official. Not drawings. Karen's eyes darted left and right. She flipped through her papers again, faster this time. Pages flew into the air. One landed on Sam's head. Another floated onto the officer's shoe. Finally, she pulled out one piece and held it up triumphantly. Here, she yelled. This is the rule. I found it. The officer took it, but before he could read it, Sam said, That's my electricity bill. The officer looked at it. It was, in fact, Sam's electricity bill. Karen screamed, frustrated. Fine. Maybe I don't have the rule right now, but IT exists. I remember reading it somewhere. I have a great memory. Sam said, You accused my lawn gnome of staring at you last week. It was staring at me. Karen said. With its evil little gnome eyes. The officer stepped back slightly. Ma'am, please calm down. I will not calm down. Karen yelled, stomping her foot again. He is a community menace. He is a danger. I want him arrested. Sam raised an eyebrow. For cooking breakfast? Yes, she screamed. This is a peaceful community. And he destroyed the peace with his pork. The officer held up his hands. Ma'am, cooking bacon is not a crime. There is no reason for arrest. Karen's jaw dropped so far it nearly hit the ground. What did you just say? She whispered, shaking. Ma'am, you cannot arrest someone for cooking food in their own home, the officer repeated. Karen's fingers tightened around her folder. Her breathing became loud and uneven. Her eyes twitched with rage. She wasn't done. Not even close. Slowly, she stepped closer to the officer, lowered her voice, and said, If you won't arrest him, then I will. The officer blinked. What does that mean? Karen pointed at Sam with both hands like she was casting a spell. I am placing him under HOA arrest. Sam stared at her like she had lost her last piece of logic. The officer sighed deeply. This wasn't just another complaint. This was turning into a full meltdown. And the worst part? Karen was only getting started. The officer stood still for a moment, staring at Karen like she had just spoken an alien language. HOA arrest, he repeated slowly, trying to make sure he heard her correctly. Yes. Karen shouted proudly, as if she had invented something amazing. HOA arrest. It is a very serious punishment. More serious than normal arrest. The officer blinked. Ma'am, that's not a real thing. It is if I say it is. Karen yelled. Sam rubbed his forehead. He had seen Karen angry before, but this was a new level, a level where logic had packed its bags and left town. Karen marched toward Sam, clutching her fake rule folder like a holy book. "You are under HOA arrest," she announced dramatically. "You must come with me immediately." Sam stepped back. "Come with you where?" "To HOA headquarters," she yelled. Sam frowned. "You mean your garage?" Karen gasped. "How dare you? It is not a garage. It is an operations center." The officer calmly stepped between them before Karen got even closer. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you cannot detain anyone. This is not how the law works." Karen pushed her glasses up her nose and glared at him. "Are you questioning my authority?" "I'm questioning your reality," the officer muttered under his breath. Karen didn't hear him, fortunately. Instead, she expanded her chest proudly and said, "Officer, I need you to understand something. This man has committed a crime. He has released harmful bacon fumes that entered my home. My curtains still smell like pork. My living room feels greasy. I almost slipped and died." Sam blinked. "You slipped?" "Yes." Karen snapped. "The bacon air made my floor oily." The officer tilted his head. "Ma'am, that's not how air works." Karen pointed a shaking finger at him. "How do you know? Are you a bacon scientist?" The officer sighed deeply. "No one is a bacon scientist." Karen stomped her foot again, this time so hard her sandal popped off. It flew in the air, spun twice, and landed in the bushes. Karen didn't even notice. She continued yelling while barefoot on the driveway. "I demand action. I demand justice." Sam leaned toward the officer and whispered, "Should we get her sandal?" The officer shook his head. "Leave it. She's in battle mode." Karen raised her folder over her head like it was a sacred scroll. "I have documents that prove my authority." Sam whispered again, "Those papers are blank." The officer nodded. "Yes, I know." Karen flipped to a random page, which was again blank, but she pretended she was reading something very serious. "It clearly says," she announced loudly, "that no resident may cook any item that causes a smell stronger than steamed broccoli." Sam muttered, "That's not a rule, that's torture." Karen ignored him. "This is a peaceful community," she yelled. "We do not allow aggressive foods. Bacon is an aggressive food. It attacks the air." Sam looked at the officer. "I didn't know breakfast could attack." The officer shook his head. "Me neither." Karen then stepped closer to the officer again. Her face was red, her hair was wild, and her eyes were shining like she had discovered a new universe. "You must arrest him," she said slowly, dramatically, and with all the seriousness she could gather. "If you do not, he will continue this attack. Who knows what he will cook next? Sausages? Burgers? A steak? The neighborhood cannot survive this pattern of violence." Sam laughed. "Violence? Against who? Vegetables?" Karen spun toward him like a tornado. "Do not mock me." The officer put up his hand. "Ma'am, no crime has been committed. Cooking food is allowed. Unless there is fire, danger, or harassment, this is not a police issue." Karen stared at him silently. A quiet, still silence. Too quiet. Too still. Then, "You are on his side," she screamed at the top of her lungs. The officer stepped back. "Excuse me? You're biased." Karen yelled. "You are protecting the bacon criminal." "Ma'am." "No," she interrupted. "I see what's happening here. You probably like bacon. Don't you?" The officer blinked. "I mean, yeah, I like bacon." Karen gasped like he confessed to a murder. "I knew it. This is corruption." Sam covered his face with his hand, trying not to laugh. Karen started pacing in circles, waving her folder in the air. This is a conspiracy. A big neat conspiracy. You men are teaming up against me. Against the community. Against public safety. The officer crossed his arms. Ma'am, please calm down. I will not calm down. Karen screamed. I will get higher authorities involved. The mayor. The governor. The president. Someone must understand the danger of bacon. Sam stared at her. Karen, it's breakfast. Not a weapon. But Karen didn't listen. She opened her folder again and started pulling out pages, throwing them like confetti. Papers flew everywhere, on the lawn, on the driveway, onto the hood of the police car. One paper floated lazily down and landed on the officer's shoulder. He picked it up. It was a printout of a recipe for vegan soup. He sighed. Ma'am, what is this? Karen snatched it away. Evidence. Of what? That he doesn't cook this, she yelled, pointing at the recipe. Sam threw his hands up. Karen, I don't even know what tofu miso kale soup is. Karen glared so hard it looked like she was trying to set him on fire with her eyes. The officer stepped forward again, raising his voice slightly for the first time. Ma'am. Enough. If you continue causing a disturbance, you may be the one committing an offense. You cannot misuse emergency services. You cannot create false accusations. And you cannot harass your neighbors. Karen's eyes widened. Are you threatening me? No, the officer answered, I'm warning you. But Karen wasn't listening anymore. She was shaking with rage. Her hands were clenched, her mouth pulled tight, and her breathing loud and uneven. She was preparing for something. A meltdown. A giant one. Sam whispered to the officer, should we call backup? The officer whispered back, for bacon? Probably. Karen suddenly lifted her arms, screamed a long dramatic scream and announced. If the law will not stop him, then I will. And with that, Karen charged toward Sam's house. Barefoot. Folder swinging in the air. Like a wild raccoon with paperwork. The officer gasped. Sam stepped back nervously. This was no longer about bacon. This was now a full Karen operation. And the chaos was far from over. Karen's barefoot charge toward Sam's house was fast enough to scare a squirrel off the fence. Her folder waved above her head like she was leading an angry parade of one. Sam instinctively stepped back, but the officer quickly moved forward and blocked her path. Ma'am. Stop right there, the officer commanded. Karen froze mid-step, wobbling like a flamingo, her eyes wide and wild. Officer, she shouted. Move. I must perform an HOA inspection. No, you must not, the officer said firmly. You do not have the authority to enter someone's property. Karen gasped dramatically, pressing a hand to her chest like she had been shot. How dare you? I always have authority. I am the community protector. The peacekeeper. The guardian of the neighborhood. Sam whispered, more like the neighborhood headache. The officer tried not to smile. Karen stomped her bare foot on the pavement. Let me through. No, the officer repeated. This is private property. You can't enter without permission. Karen pointed at Sam. Fine. Then I will make him let me in. He must open the door for HOA inspections. Sam shook his head. Nope. Not gonna happen. Karen turned to the officer with a shocked expression. Do you see this defiance? This rebellion? This is what bacon does to a man. Ma'am, the officer said, you need to understand something. Cooking breakfast is not a crime. There is no law against bacon. Karen stood still. Completely silent. Then her eyes slowly narrowed. So you're saying, he can just do whatever he wants? He can cook anything, she asked, sounding like she was discussing a dangerous situation. The officer nodded patiently. Unless it is illegal, yes. Karen placed both hands on her cheeks and whispered loudly, "This community is doomed." Sam crossed his arms. "Karen, you're overreacting." Karen snapped toward him like a robot switching targets. "Overreacting? You cooked bacon. You could have cooked oatmeal. You could have cooked fruit. You could have cooked nothing. But no. You chose the deadliest option." Sam blinked. "Deadliest?" Karen leaned forward. "Yes. The smell, the grease, the smoke, the atmosphere. It attacked my home." The officer had enough. He lifted his notepad and spoke firmly. "Ma'am, I'm going to say this clearly, you cannot misuse emergency services. You cannot demand arrests for personal preferences. And you cannot harass your neighbors." Karen's eyes widened. "Harass? I don't harass. I help." Sam raised an eyebrow. "You once left a note on my door because my grass grew too confidently." Karen shouted, "It did. It grew in a rude direction." The officer pointed at her. "Ma'am, please stop yelling." Karen turned to him slowly, her voice dropping to a dramatic whisper. "Do you know what my biggest fear is, officer?" The officer sighed. "I'm guessing it has something to do with bacon." "No," she shouted. Then paused. "Well, yes. But also, chaos. If people start cooking whatever they want, whenever they want, smells will mix. Tastes will clash. The air will become unpredictable." Sam looked at her like she had just spoken a prophecy. "Karen, it's not the end of the world." Karen ignored him. She took a deep breath, held up her folder, and said, "Officer, you must check his kitchen." The officer shook his head instantly. "No. I cannot enter someone's home without a warrant or permission." Karen pointed at Sam. "Permission granted." Sam frowned. "That's not how permission works. I am the HOA president." Karen insisted. Sam said, "You're the HOA president in your dreams." Karen clutched her folder dramatically. "You wound me with your words." The officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, please step back from the property line." Karen didn't move. "Ma'am," the officer repeated, firmer this time. Still, Karen stood there. Her jaw clenched, her hands shaking, her eyes filled with a storm. Then suddenly, she took a loud, deep breath and screamed at the top of her lungs. "If you won't check his house, then I will bring the house to you." Sam looked at the officer. "What does that even mean?" The officer whispered, "I have no idea." Karen stormed toward Sam's backyard gate. The officer rushed to stop her. "Ma'am! Stop! This is trespassing." Karen yelled without turning around, "I am performing a safety mission." Sam jogged after them. "Karen! Get away from my backyard." Karen reached the gate, grabbed the handle, and yanked it. Locked. She shook it harder. Still locked. She growled. "Open this door. I know he is hiding evidence." Sam shouted, "It's bacon, Karen." "What evidence? My frying pan?" Karen spun around dramatically. "Yes. The weapon." The officer rubbed his temples. "Ma'am, a frying pan is not a weapon. It is when used for evil," Karen said. Sam almost laughed. "What evil? Breakfast?" Karen pointed at him so aggressively her finger shook. "You are mocking the HOA. And I will not allow it." "Ma'am," the officer repeated firmly, "you are creating a disturbance. If you keep behaving this way, you may be the one who gets cited." Karen gasped quietly, like a surprised villain. "Me," she whispered. "I am the victim here. I am the protector. The community hero. Sam muttered, more like the community headache. Karen's eyes snapped toward him. I heard that. The officer raised his voice slightly. Ma'am, calm down. Karen shook her head rapidly. No. I will not calm down until justice is served. Justice for what? Sam asked. For my suffering. Karen shouted. For the trauma. For the fumes. For the emotional damage. Sam sighed. Karen, you barged into my morning over bacon. An attack, she corrected. The officer finally stepped in front of her firmly. Ma'am, this ends now. Karen froze, breathing heavily, eyes burning with frustrated fire. You're telling me, she said slowly, that I must let him get away with this crime? There was no crime, the officer said. Karen clenched her fists. So that's it? No arrest? No punishment? No justice? The officer nodded. Correct. Karen stared at him for 3 long seconds. Then, she let out the loudest, longest, most dramatic scream the neighborhood had ever heard. This is a cover-up. Sam jumped a little. The officer blinked in shock. Karen pointed at them both with shaking fingers. You two are working together. You are part of the bacon system. Sam whispered to the officer, did we just get promoted? The officer didn't laugh. He was too busy dealing with Karen's meltdown. Karen stomped her foot again. If the law won't help me, if the rules won't protect me, then I will take my case to the entire neighborhood. She puffed her chest dramatically. I will call a community meeting. And with that bizarre announcement, she ran down the street barefoot, folder flapping like a wounded bird, yelling. Meeting. Emergency meeting. Bacon crisis. Sam and the officer stared after her. Sam sighed. She's really going for it. The officer nodded. This is far from over. And he was right. Karen's meltdown was only getting started. Karen didn't just run down the street, she flew down it. Her barefoot steps slapped the pavement like angry drumbeats, her folder flapped wildly in her hands, and her voice echoed across every house as she shouted. Emergency meeting. Community under attack. Bacon crisis. Neighbors peeked out from their windows, confused. Some stepped onto their porches. A few dogs barked. A cat sprinted away. One old man watering his plants shook his head and said, Lord, what's she screaming about now? Karen didn't stop. She ran to every house, banging on every door she could reach. Boom, boom, boom. She didn't wait for anyone to answer. She just yelled through closed doors. Come out. It is an emergency. Someone cooked bacon. The neighborhood froze. Some people laughed. Others groaned. A few simply went back inside because they already knew, once Karen started shouting, nobody could stop her, not even gravity. Back at Sam's house, he stood next to the officer on the porch, watching the chaos unfold. Sam said, should we stop her? The officer shook his head. No. She'll wear herself out eventually. Or run out of people to annoy. But the officer was wrong. Karen had unlimited energy when it came to drama. She rushed to the center of the street and spun around like she was standing on a stage. Neighbors, she shouted to the sky. Your safety is at risk. 5 people slowly gathered around her, all half awake, all confused. One woman was still in pajamas holding a mug of coffee. A teenager stood there eating cereal straight from the box. A man wearing slippers and sunglasses said, Karen, what now? Did a leaf fall on your driveway again? Karen raised her hands high like she was preaching. It is worse, she declared. Much worse. We have a criminal among us. People looked around, trying to see who she meant. Then Karen pointed to Sam's house dramatically. Him. He cooked bacon. The small group stared blankly.
The man in slippers said, "That's it?"
It is not just bacon, Karen argued.
It is illegal bacon. The woman with coffee sipped and asked, "Illegal how? Did he smuggle it across the border?" Karen threw her hands up. "No. He gave the neighborhood a toxic smell. My house was violated by pork scent.
I can still feel the greasiness in my soul." The teenager laughed so hard cereal spilled onto his shirt.
Karen stomped. "Stop laughing. This is serious."
Meanwhile, the officer and Sam slowly walked over to the gathering crowd. The officer tried to take control.
"Everyone, please calm down. There is no emergency.
This is not a crisis." Karen spun toward him like a furious windmill.
"Of course you'd say that. You're on his team." Sam raised a hand. "Karen, nobody is on any team. It's just breakfast."
Karen pointed at him with the power of 1,000 angry librarians.
"Breakfast? Breakfast? You willingly unleashed cooked meat into the air." The teenager muttered, "Unleashed bacon. Sounds like a band name."
The officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, you have gathered your neighbors under false pretenses."
"This is not an emergency." Karen pressed the back of her hand to her forehead dramatically. "False? False? Officer, I am the only one telling the truth.
I am the one protecting this neighborhood from dangerous smells."
The woman with the coffee asked calmly, "Karen, did you eat anything weird this morning?" Karen gasped. "Are you suggesting I am unstable?"
The man in slippers said, "No, Karen, we are confirming you are unstable."
Karen's meltdown intensified. Her face turned even redder.
Her hair was now sticking up in random directions. She looked like she had been powered by pure chaos.
"Listen to me," she screamed. "If we do not stop him now, who knows what he'll cook next? He could make fried chicken or garlic bread." Everyone paused.
The woman with the coffee said, "Karen, garlic bread is delicious."
Karen screamed into the sky. "You people don't understand."
She turned on Sam again.
"I will not let you destroy this community with your smelly cooking." Sam replied calmly, "Karen, people barbecue outside all the time." Karen froze.
Then she yelled, "Barbecues are controlled smells.
Bacon is chaos." The officer quietly asked Sam, "Is she okay?" Sam whispered, "Depends on your definition of okay." Karen suddenly dropped to her knees right in the middle of the street. She looked up dramatically and yelled, "I will file a formal HOA complaint against everyone here." The man in slippers said, "You're not even the HOA president."
Karen whipped her head toward him.
"Yes, I am."
"No," the woman with coffee replied, "you're not.
There hasn't been an HOA president for 3 years." Karen gasped like someone stole her phone. "I have been leading this community all alone?" The teenager said, "We never asked you to lead anything." Karen screamed into the sky again, "I have been betrayed." The officer sighed. "Ma'am, please stand up." But Karen didn't. Instead, she slapped her folder against the ground and declared, "I will bring order back to this place." She stood up slowly, shaking with rage. Then she announced, "I am calling a second meeting. A mega meeting." The neighbors groaned. "You can't just keep calling meetings," said the man in slippers. "Oh yes I can." Karen yelled. "I will call as many meetings as it takes to bring justice." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Justice for what?" Karen stared at him with wild determination. "For my nose." Sam finally lost his patience. "Karen, it's just bacon.
You're treating this like a national emergency."
Karen turned slowly, lifting her finger like she had the final word. "It is a national emergency," she said. "A bacon emergency."
Then she dramatically pointed at Sam and shouted,
"And you haven't heard the last of this.
With that, she turned around, grabbed her folder off the ground, stomped away barefoot again, and yelled at every house she passed.
Prepare for mega meeting. Justice is coming. Sam looked at the officer. The officer exhaled heavily. This is going to get worse before it gets better. And he was right. Karen was heading home to prepare for her biggest meltdown yet.
Karen stormed into her house like she was entering a courtroom she already owned. She slammed the door so hard that the picture frames on her wall rattled.
Her cat, Whiskerstein, ran under the couch instantly.
Even the houseplants seemed scared. Karen dropped her folder on the table and began pacing back and forth. This community needs leadership, she muttered.
Strong leadership. Heroic leadership. My leadership.
She grabbed her planner, a massive pink notebook covered in stickers that said things like "Boss Lady, I don't complain, I correct," and HOA equals heart of authority.
Flipping it open, she wrote in giant letters, "Mega meeting tonight." Then she added under it, "Mandatory attendance. No excuses." She smirked.
This will teach them, she said proudly to herself. They will finally see that I, Karen of Maple Street, will not allow bacon crimes. She pulled out colorful pens and drew dramatic stars and circles around the words.
She even added lightning bolts. A meeting wasn't a meeting until it looked like a storm.
Once she was done decorating the page, she created a detailed plan.
She titled it,
"Plan to restore order and save the neighborhood from smells."
Underneath, she wrote numbered steps. Blame Sam for everything. Demand new HOA rules. Prove that bacon smell equals danger. Get the officer to admit he was wrong. Make everyone vote for me as HOA president. Victory parade, optional.
She put her pen down and stared at her list with pride.
Yes, she whispered dramatically. This is what heroes do.
She looked into the mirror on her wall and gave herself a motivational speech.
You are powerful. You are strong. You are the HOA voice they need. They may resist, but you will win.
Then she pointed at her reflection like it was a rival.
And nobody will cook bacon again. Meanwhile, outside,
Sam was sitting on his porch with a cold drink, still trying to process what he had witnessed. The officer stood next to him, writing a short report in his tablet while shaking his head slowly.
Do you think she'll calm down? Sam asked. The officer let out a tired sigh.
Sir, that woman just declared a bacon emergency to the entire neighborhood.
I don't think calm is in her vocabulary. Sam groaned. What do we do now?
The officer shrugged.
Just try not to cook anything that makes a smell for the next few hours. She's in full meltdown mode. Suddenly, loud printer noises started coming from Karen's house. BZZZZZZZT BRRR K-Chunk BRRT. Sam and the officer both froze. The officer narrowed his eyes. Oh no, she's printing flyers. Sam nearly spit out his drink. Flyers? For what?
For whatever she's about to do, the officer replied.
And trust me, it's never something good. Karen begins her mission.
Inside her house, Karen was standing proudly next to her printer.
A mountain of papers came out one after another.
She grabbed a stack and held them up like precious treasure. The top of the flyer said in huge red letters, "Mega meeting tonight, HOA emergency." Underneath it, she added, "Topic, community safety and bacon violence. Attendance is required. Failure to attend will be noted. Very noted." She stapled each flyer with unnecessary force. Then she grabbed a roll of tape and marched out of her house like a soldier going into battle. She taped one flyer to her tree. Another to her mailbox. Another to her neighbor's mailbox. Then she started taping them onto cars, windows, fences, and even the community trash cans. She didn't care if it made sense, she believed it was her duty. She walked up to Sam's porch and taped a flyer right above his door handle. Sam stared at her, stunned. "Karen,
"What is this?" he asked. She lifted her chin proudly. "This is the mega meeting. Attendance mandatory. Even for offenders." "Offenders?" Sam repeated. "For cooking breakfast?" Karen scoffed. "For disturbing the peace.
For creating a smell hazard.
For causing emotional and nasal trauma."
The officer stepped forward.
"Ma'am, you can't order mandatory attendance. You don't have the authority."
Karen narrowed her eyes.
"Oh really?" "Says who?" "Says, literally the law," the officer replied. Karen waved her hand dramatically. "The law is confusing and open to interpretation." "No," the officer said. "No, it's really not."
Karen rolled her eyes and stomped off to continue taping flyers everywhere. The neighborhood reacts. People soon came outside holding the flyers with looks of deep confusion.
The woman with the coffee said, "She's calling a meeting again? Didn't she just melt down an hour ago?" The man in slippers muttered, "I'm not going to any meeting about bacon. I'm watching the game tonight." The teenager laughed, "Bacon violence? What is she talking about? Did the bacon jump out of the pan and attack her?"
Others gathered in small groups, complaining.
One man said, "Does she even have the right to call meetings?" Another replied, "No.
But if we don't show up, she'll scream at our houses." Everybody groaned in agreement.
Nobody wanted that. Karen prepares her throne.
Back at her house, Karen set up her living room like a courtroom.
She placed a chair in the center and labeled it HOA President, Temporary.
She lit 2 candles for dramatic effect. She arranged her papers neatly.
She put a whistle around her neck.
Then she whispered to herself.
"Tonight, they will understand." The cat meowed nervously from under the couch. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy rehearsing her speech.
She stood in front of the mirror and practiced.
"Friends, neighbors, victims of smell pollution."
No, stronger, she corrected herself.
She tried again. "People of Maple Street.
I stand before you as your protector."
She smiled. Perfect.
She sat in her president chair and folded her hands.
"Tonight," she said softly, "is the night I take back control." She didn't know it yet.
But tonight was actually the night her entire plan would fall apart.
Completely. And spectacularly. By sunset, Karen's house looked like something out of a strange reality show.
Her living room had been transformed into what she proudly called
HOA Headquarters Emergency Mode.
Chairs were arranged in rows. Papers were stacked in piles.
A giant poster on the wall said, "No bacon equals no problems."
And on the coffee table sat a small bell labeled order bell, ready to be rung aggressively.
Karen sat on her HOA president chair, back straight, chin high, waiting for the neighbors to arrive. She had even placed a fake nameplate made from cardboard. "Karen, your leader, for your safety."
Her cat watched from across the room, eyes full of judgment.
The neighbors arrive.
People slowly started walking toward her house with the same energy people have when they walk into a dentist appointment.
Sam and the officer stood near the back of the group. The man in slippers whispered, "This better be quick. My game starts in 30 minutes. The woman with coffee said, "Knowing Karen? This will last 3 hours."
The teenager had popcorn.
"This is going to be great." Karen threw open her door dramatically. "Welcome, citizens. Please enter the room of justice." Everyone sighed and walked inside. Karen stood proudly in the front. "Sit anywhere. But offenders sit in the first row."
She pointed at Sam.
Sam raised an eyebrow. "I'm not sitting in the front." Karen stomped her foot. "Yes, you are. That is where offenders sit."
The officer stepped forward calmly.
"Ma'am, he can sit anywhere he wants." Karen gasped like she had been betrayed by gravity. "Fine.
But this will go in my report."
What report? The woman with coffee asked. Karen glared. The report of future punishments. Everyone rolled their eyes. The meeting begins. Karen banged a wooden spoon on the table like a judge's hammer. The mega meeting is now in session. Nobody reacted. She banged again, louder. Order! The teenager whispered, her spoon's gonna break. Karen cleared her throat and held up her first paper. Tonight, we discuss the biggest danger this neighborhood has ever faced. She pointed dramatically at Sam. This man cooked bacon. Sam blinked. Karen, literally half the people here cook bacon. Everybody nodded. Karen froze. You cook bacon too? All of you? The man in slippers said, yes, Karen. Everyone cooks bacon. Even vegetarians cook it for their families. Karen swayed like she might faint. This neighborhood is worse than I thought. She held up her second paper titled Bacon Crime Report. In this report, she said, I explain how bacon smell travels through the air and attacks innocent noses. The officer rubbed his face. Smells do not attack people. Karen ignored him and continued. And that is why, she said loudly, I want a new HOA rule. No cooking any food with smell. Ever. The room erupted. What? Someone shouted. That's insane. My house, my kitchen. We're not eating dry bread every day. I just bought garlic butter. Karen held her hand up. Do not panic. This rule is for your safety. Sam laughed. Karen, you can't ban food smells. Karen snapped toward him. Yes, I can. I am your leader. The woman with coffee said, You're not our leader. Karen raised her voice. I will be. Starting now. Please vote for me as HOA president. Everyone stared at her. Silence. Then the teenager said, We don't even have an HOA. The officer nodded. He's right. Karen froze. But I thought. Sam stepped forward. Karen, there used to be an HOA. But it shut down 3 years ago. Nobody is in charge now. Karen's eye twitched. No, that cannot be true. It is, the officer said. There is no HOA to lead. She looked around wildly, as if the walls were closing in. So I am not president? No, everyone said in unison. So? I have no power. No. Karen's mouth dropped open. She stumbled backward into her chair. She whispered, My whole life was a lie. The cat meowed from under the couch, clearly saying, I knew it. Karen loses control. Karen jumped back up suddenly. No. I will not accept this. I am taking over anyway. She ran to her poster and grabbed a stack of papers. These are new rules. You will all follow them. She handed out papers titled, No bacon. No garlic. No loud walking. No colorful lawn chairs. No fun after 5 p.m. No smiling during weekdays. People looked at the rules and started laughing. The man in slippers said, Karen, you've officially lost it. The woman with coffee added, You can't control the world like this. Karen stepped onto her chair like a pirate captain. I will control this neighborhood. You will obey. The chair wobbled. Everyone gasped. Then. Crash. The chair flipped. Karen dropped like a falling tree. Thud. She landed on the floor with her papers flying everywhere like confetti. The room went silent. The teenager whispered, That was amazing. Sam stepped forward. Karen, are you okay? Karen groaned dramatically. No. I have been injured in the line of duty, defending this neighborhood. The officer said, You fell off a chair. Karen tried to crawl toward her papers but couldn't reach them. She stretched her hand out like a movie character in a dramatic ending.
My rules, my beautiful rules. But nobody helped her pick them up. Instead, the woman with coffee calmly started gathering the scattered papers and tossed them in the trash.
No! Karen cried. My laws! The officer stood over her. Ma'am, this meeting is over.
Karen sat up slowly, hair messy, expression broken. You can't just end my mega meeting, she whispered.
Yes, the officer said firmly. I can. And I am. Everyone walked out of the house, relieved. Sam was the last one at the door.
He looked back at Karen sitting on the floor surrounded by chaos.
She glared at him. This is not over, she whispered dramatically. Sam smiled. Karen. I'm making pancakes tomorrow. Karen gasped loudly. No. Sam added, with bacon.
Karen screamed into her hands. The officer patted Sam on the shoulder.
You just started the sequel. Sam grinned. Let her try. And the neighborhood finally got quiet again. Well, until breakfast the next morning.